I'm going to draw a parallel now between the world of recruiting and hiring staff members and the world of sport, particularly team sport. Often, I guess we could maybe say football, the various codes of football and rugby and NFL and basketball, etc. One of the things that seems to happen a lot as you get to the sharp end of a sports season is that managers start getting sacked. Clubs start to panic. They sack the manager. They bring someone new in, and there's a hope that the new arrival will save the day. Now, often what happens with certain managers, and we all know them if we know our own individual sports that we're keen on, certain managers, shall we say, have a reputation for being well-travelled, and they seem to always bring the same 2 or 3 players with them wherever they go. Now, the kind approach or the kind take on this scenario might be that manager, whether it is Jose Mourinho, Ewan McKenzie, Mick Malthouse, I'm struggling for various people now, forgive me, but you will all know your own ones in your own sporting arenas. Certain managers, they are sort of almost tied, it seems, to certain players who always seem to rock up with them once the new manager arrives. Now, as I say, the charitable take on this is that it's about a manager understanding who's worked well with them before, who they can rely on. They know this person's skills and background and attributes, etc., etc. So, of course, they bring them on board, and why wouldn't you? And that's, there's nothing inherently terrible about that idea. I think possibly a slightly fairer, albeit harsher, way of looking at it might be that what a lot of the drivers behind those decisions are about managers looking for people who can be brought in very, very quickly. So there's a time factor. It takes less time, obviously, to grab 2 or 3 guys that you've known for a long time and worked with before and just bring them in than it does to source across the whole market the best people you can get. Which incidentally, of course, is what every company says they are doing the whole time. So quite how they square that with a manager just grabbing 2 or 3 people they used to work with is an interesting one, but it seems to happen an awful lot, and the contradiction seems to get ignored. The other issue, let's be honest about this, I think, is that it is often about, to some degree, bolstering the ego or making the manager feel more secure. If he or she can look at 3 or 4 guys that they brought in, who they always bring across, they sort of know that those people kind of owe them their job. And so how critical or how difficult or how awkward or how challenging in any respect are Stephen, Mark and Caroline going to be if Stephen, Mark and Caroline always get brought across by Jenny because she loves them and thinks they're great. Again, it's not necessarily these people are going to be terrible, but it does beg the question, are they really the best people you could find out there? I would have to say probably not. So it's important, I think, that companies recognise that just doing things that feel safe and quick and comfortable isn't necessarily the best of ideas. And of course, the other bit that tends to get forgotten about until it's too late, and this is where I'm going much more into a typical employment scenario, but it does also work in sport, is that those people who are already in the team, when the new person arrives, when the new manager arrives, and suddenly 2 or 3 other people come as something of a bundled entourage, the existing team members, their noses are out of joint, because they are inherently made to feel very aware that they're not the chosen ones. They're not the ones that this new manager has actively pursued and brought in. They're the incumbents. They're the ones that somebody else picked. And so you often get this really big drop in morale straight away for those people who have been there before. You kind of get this very strong sort of them and us split that can occur. And again, no company would seriously go out of its way to achieve that. And yet, this policy often seems to achieve that very goal. So companies, please think very long and hard about just simply grabbing 2 or 3 guys that you've always worked with before, because you may well be selling yourself very, very short.